Power in the criminal underworld rarely looks the way Hollywood tells you it does. It isn't always loud. It doesn't always bleed. SOMETIMES. It's just the quiet hum of a server rack.
For months, federal tactical teams and the DEA had been tracking a ghost. They weren't looking for a man hiding in the mountains with a multi-million-dollar bounty on his head. They were following a much more dangerous, invisible trail. The digital footprint of a transnational corporate machine.
3:15 a.m. The breach? There is no dramatic standoff. Two armed guards at the main gate attempt to raise their weapons.
They are neutralized in seconds, subdued before they can even pull a trigger. The silence of the Jalisco night is barely broken.
Inside, the strike team doesn't find a warlord clutching an assault rifle. They find Ive.
She is sitting perfectly calm in a room lined with ledgers, spreadsheets, and encrypted digital devices.
She doesn't run. She doesn't panic. She simply waits, her composure entirely unbroken, as the heavy steel handcuffs snap shut over her wrists.
$12 million in cash, stacked with accounting precision in plastic bins. But the cash was just pocket change. Beside it sat the real prize, laptops and hard drives containing years of transaction logs, offshore registries.
It was a complete blueprint of the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, the deadliest, most ruthless criminal organization on the planet. This is Rosalinda González Valencia, known as La Jefa.
To the general public, she was merely a background figure, the elusive wife of Mencho. But to the financial intelligence analysts who finally broke her network,
she was the architect. While her husband's enforcers burned cities, shot down military helicopters, Rosalinda operated in a different reality.
She sat in the air-conditioned quiet of a back office, methodically laundering the blood out of the money. She didn't command armies of hitmen. She commanded Excel spreadsheets, dummy corporations, and an army of white-collar professionals.
Her arrest was heralded as a decapitation strike against the very heart of the cartel's financial empire.
The authorities had taken the mastermind off the board. They seized the ledgers. They froze the immediate assets.
By all conventional logic of law enforcement, it should have been the end. The catastrophic financial collapse of CJNG. But it wasn't.
Within mere weeks of her capture, the money started moving again. Fresh signatures seamlessly replaced the old on-export documents. Shell companies in Panama and Belize quietly changed directors. The billions of dollars kept flowing, crossing borders and entering the legitimate banking system.
Exactly as if she had never left. The authorities realized a chilling, inescapable truth. They hadn't just arrested a cartel kingpin.
They had stumbled into a self-sustaining financial matrix, a laundering architecture specifically designed to survive the loss of its own creator.
If the architect was locked in a maximum security concrete cell, and the hard drives were sitting in a federal evidence locker, how was the blood money still being pumped into the global economy?
To understand the monster, we have to dissect the machine she built. You cannot hide a mountain of physical cash. $1 million in mixed bills weighs roughly 100 pounds.
It is bulky. It smells like soil, sweat, and gunpowder. It attracts dogs, informants, and federal warrants.
To a cartel, raw street cash isn't wealth. It's a glowing radioactive liability.
Rosalinda González Valencia understood that violence only wins the street. To win the war, you have to conquer the banks.
She engineered a system operating on the foundational doctrine of the high-level money laundering triangle: placement, layering, and integration. The first step, placement, is the most dangerous.
How do you inject blood money into the pristine veins of the global financial system without triggering an alarm?
You don't use ski masks, you use agriculture.
The Valencia clan had roots in the avocado and mango farms of Rosalinda weaponized this heritage.
Under her architectural command, CJNG didn't just bribe existing companies, they built a parallel corporate universe. Agricultural export businesses were registered.
On paper, they were moving green gold to the United States and Europe. In reality, they were laundering nightmares.
The mechanism was trade-based money laundering via invoice manipulation. A shipment of avocados worth $50,000 would be invoiced at $500,000. When US customs data was eventually analyzed, investigators found that the declared exports mathematically exceeded the physical biological output of Mykokin's farms.
Phantom fruit was being sold for very real dollars. The extra cash, the drug proceeds, now had a legal alibi.
It was legitimate export revenue. The radioactive cash was successfully placed.
But placement is just a lobby of the financial matrix. If law enforcement looks closely at the avocado farm, the illusion breaks.
The money cannot stay still. It must be scrambled, scattered, and buried. This is layering.
Rosalinda's ledgers revealed a dizzying labyrinth of shell companies, tucked away in the corporate registries of Panama and Belize.
These entities produced nothing. They sold nothing. They existed solely as hollow vessels. Funds would bounce between offshore accounts in a matter of seconds, passing through the hands of nominee shareholders.
Ghost directors who were legally registered but had absolutely no functional ties to the cartel.
To dismantle this, financial task forces had to execute a grueling legal maneuver known as corporate veil piercing.
They couldn't just follow the money. The money was moving at the speed of light.
They had to legally strip away the protective layers of limited liability to expose the true beneficial owner hiding in the dark.
But Rosalinda had anticipated this.
In one documented instance, a single luxury asset changed corporate ownership 5 times in 30 days, each transfer backed by airtight, flawlessly notarized documents.
By the time investigators pierced one veil, 3 more had been woven.
The final phase of the triangle, integration.
The money returns home, not as dirty pesos in a duffel bag, but as a penthouse suite. It comes back as premium tequila brands registered in Jalisco, shipping thousands of cases to North America.
As CJNG's drug revenue spiked miraculously, so did their tequila sales.
A dual stream of income that masked the poison with the gloss of international commerce. This is the true terror of Rosalinda's architecture. She erased the line between the underworld and the upper class.
The cartel was no longer just a gang. It was a diversified portfolio holding construction firms, car washes, and beach resorts. The money was clean. The system was frictionless.
It was a masterpiece of corporate engineering. But a machine this complex cannot run on algorithms alone. It requires human operators.
It requires lawyers, accountants, and directors to physically sign the documents, to walk into the banks, to look the auditors in the eye.
You cannot hire a Wall Street firm to manage a cartel's books. You cannot post a job opening for a money launderer.
To execute a multi-billion-dollar phantom economy, you need absolute, unbreakable silence.
And in the paranoid, blood-soaked world of the Mexican drug war, there is only one currency stronger than the US dollar. Blood. Blood. To run the empire, Rosalinda didn't turn to mercenaries.
She turned to Los Cuinis, her brothers, her sisters, her cousins.
The Valencia clan, a closed-loop biological fortress. It was the perfect defense. Until it became their deadliest liability.
Intelligence agencies have a standard playbook for dismantling organized crime. Wiretaps, informants, and undercover stings.
You find a disgruntled lieutenant, You buy his loyalty with immunity or cash, ... and you tear the organization down from the inside out.
But how do you infiltrate a bloodline?
You cannot bribe a man to betray his own mother. You cannot plant a DEA agent at a family Thanksgiving dinner.
This is the doctrine of nepotistic resilience, a structural defense mechanism where trust is not earned. It is inherited exclusively through DNA.
For years, this closed-loop kinship scaffolding allowed Rosalinda to move hundreds of millions of dollars, ... without a single whisper leaking beyond the family walls. It was the perfect armor.
But in the architecture of international finance, perfect armor is heavy, and it leaves deep footprints.
The business of laundering money requires a public face. To purchase a luxury high-rise in Guadalajara, to export a container of premium tequila, ... someone has to legally sign the contract.
Rosalinda's brothers, sisters, and in-laws attended notary appointments. They paid corporate taxes. They sat on the boards of directors.
Their arrogance, or perhaps their sheer administrative necessity, led them to use their real names. The very thing that kept the network running smoothly, ... became the thread that would unravel it.
Mexican and US financial investigators didn't need to kick down doors in the jungle. They simply had to log into the public corporate registries of Jalisco and N.
The family's unity, once its ultimate shield, had become a glowing neon sign. The retaliation was not kinetic. It was purely financial, ... and it was devastating.
On April 30th, 2018, the US Treasury's Office of Foreign Assets Control dropped a nuclear bomb on Rosalinda's empire. They designated her under the Foreign Narcotics Kingpin Act.
In a single keystroke.
Every dollar, every property, and every corporate front linked to her within US jurisdiction was paralyzed. American companies were permanently banned from doing business with her network.
The avocado exports stalled. The tequila shipments were seized. The traditional banking conduits / were entirely choked off. Law enforcement waited for the Jalisco New Generation Cartel to suffocate. Instead, the cartel evolved.
If the fiat currency system was compromised, Rosalinda's network simply abandoned it.
They stepped out of the physical banks and vanished into the digital shadows.
The financial managers routed the drug proceeds through decentralized cryptocurrency networks. They utilized advanced digital tumblers, services like Wasabi Wallet and Helix, designed to scramble Bitcoin transactions across thousands of micro-wallets, rendering the blockchain completely opaque. They diversified into Asian trade fronts and renewable energy investments.
They mutated faster than the regulators could legislate. This is the chilling reality of modern transnational organized crime. We are no longer fighting drug lords.
We are fighting agile, decentralized, multinational financial tech firms that happen to sell narcotics.
When cartel money is washed through cryptographic mixers, traded for renewable energy stocks in Asia, and seamlessly reintegrated into the global digital economy.
How do you distinguish the criminal mastermind from the Silicon Valley venture capitalist?
The machine was no longer just a cartel. It had become a permanent, indestructible parasitic layer of the global economy. And Rosalinda had written the source code. Pop culture has conditioned us to look for a specific kind of villain. When the public imagines a female cartel boss, they picture Griselda Blanco, the Black Widow of the Medellin cartel, painting the streets of Miami with blood.
They imagine visceral terror, gold-plated AK-47s, and brutal vendettas.
But Rosalinda González Valencia was never that kind of criminal.
She didn't order drive-by shootings. She ordered internal audits. She didn't rule through fear and bloodshed. She ruled through bureaucratic discipline and Excel spreadsheets.
Law enforcement is trained to fight a war of attrition against human targets.
You can assassinate a rival gang leader. You can arrest a Sicario.
But you cannot shoot an offshore trust fund. You cannot put a bullet slash in a decentralized cryptographic network. Rosalinda understood that the ultimate, most terrifying form of power isn't violence. It's infrastructure.
She took a syndicate of ruthless enforcers and mutated them into a self-repairing, multi-billion-dollar corporate leviathan.
Even as she sits in a concrete federal cell, stripped of her physical freedom, the ghost of her architecture still governs the Mexican underworld.
Mid-level managers, accountants, brokers, and lawyers simply stepped into the vacuum, executing the exact playbook she meticulously authored.
The Jalisco New Generation Cartel survives today, not because of El Mencho's chaotic brutality, but because of his wife's chilling administrative genius. The world is so completely mesmerized by the carnage, so desperately busy hunting the monsters with guns on wanted posters, that we forget one devastating truth. The ones who create the monsters, who fund them and guarantee their survival, are always sitting quietly behind contracts. There are more invisible empires operating right now, Hidingin Plansiha, within the veins of our global economy. If you want to dissect the next blueprint and uncover the ghosts pulling the strings of the criminal underworld, hit the subscribe button. The next dossier is already being compiled.
See you in the shadows.